So, with the broad daylight, completely obvious Jeffrey Epstein cover-up dominating headlines and online discourse, and let's just be honest, the American people finally waking up to the fact that their occupied government is indeed run by a bunch of compromised perverts and pedophiles who are now just publicly letting themselves off the hook, suddenly there's this shift in attention and there's a bunch of renewed conversations surrounding Ghislaine Maxwell and her fate. Now, as you all know, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in the Southern District of New York. Ironically, probably not coincidentally, the same district that acquitted Diddy and managed to have Epstein die in its custody. But anyway, that Maxwell trial in and of itself was a cover-up. That case is still protected by gag orders, and despite her convictions, none of Maxwell's clients, none of Epstein's clients for that matter, were ever made public throughout those court proceedings. So it's like Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking young girls to no one, which ironically is President Trump's message. That's the narrative. It's the official position of the United States government relating to Jeffrey Epstein. They say that he had no clients, he worked for nobody, there was no blackmail, and that the entire well-vetted story that's been researched for more than a decade now, it was all a hoax. Stop asking about it or you're a weakling, and I don't want your support. So now people are starting to focus on Maxwell. Some people, like Trump world Jewish lawyer Alan Dershowitz, says she should receive a pardon. And there's a lot of speculation online right now about that actually happening. Could Trump really pardon Ghislaine Maxwell and expect no blowback? Does he care? Could he really pardon Maxwell, or for that matter, just keep Maxwell in prison and expect her to never tell the truth about what happened? I don't know, maybe he could. Maybe Maxwell knows her mission. Maybe she's going to carry it out to the end. But nobody can count on that. So, of course, that fact has a lot of people wondering whether or not Ghislaine Maxwell might try to kill herself with a paper sheet in federal custody with no cameras working and guards sleeping. We've heard very little about Maxwell's time in prison. She's currently housed in the Federal Correctional Institute in Tallahassee, Florida, which is a low-security women's facility that once housed January 6 political prisoners of war. One of those January 6 prisoners is Jessica Watson. She's with us here tonight. She has been speaking out online. She says that she's getting ahead of the narrative. She's letting the public know that the Ghislaine Maxwell that she lived alongside is not suicidal. Jessica wrote in an X post, quote, "Just putting this out there, I knew Ghislaine Maxwell personally when I was in prison with her. She isn't suicidal in the least. There are also virtually no working cameras in FCI Tallahassee. Just getting ahead of potential narratives." End quote. No working cameras. Here we go again. How about that? Where else have we heard that before? Maybe in New York City where we were housing Jeffrey Epstein? So what does that tell us? Well, probably all of the ducks are in a row. They're ready for the moment that the Trump DOJ or Benjamin Netanyahu or whoever the f*** is calling the shots here makes that call and tells the suicide squad to go waltzing into FCI Tallahassee because they have a job to do. It seems to be the precedent in this case. Why would anything change now? Unless, of course, instead of killing her, they decide to release Ghislaine Maxwell from prison, tell the American people that she killed herself, and then reunite her with Jeffrey Epstein on some Israeli-owned island somewhere. But those are, in all likelihood, the most plausible possible outcomes. Unless, like I mentioned earlier, the Trump administration and the rest of the United States government are just so past the point of caring if everyone on Earth knows that they're a bunch of pedophiles that they just let Maxwell out of jail and issue her a pardon. Also a distinct possibility. But the truth is, once they get you into federal custody, they can pretty much do whatever they want to you. The rest of the country will be none the wiser, totally in the dark, except for the handful of people who are in federal custody alongside of you. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because in federal prison, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, until just recently, there were January 6 prisoners like Jessica Watson. Jessica has written a book about her experience in federal custody, including her experiences alongside Ghislaine Maxwell. And what makes this book the most impressive, at least to us here, is the fact that she wrote it from a federal prison computer. She was using an email system that charged 5 cents per minute and limited inmates to 15-minute computer sessions before kicking them offline. So we're going to hear about Jessica's experiences alongside Ghislaine Maxwell in just a few moments. But first, I want to mention what might be one of the most insightful and thought-provoking passages in all of this book. It appears on the very first page. Jessica wrote that, quote, "My greatest fear is that my intense patriotism is mere nostalgia, a period of mourning for a nation long deceased." End quote. Yeah, that's the fear of millions of people, including millions of people who have stifled that fear within their own minds, within their own hearts, while telling themselves, if I just merely trust the plan, everything will be okay and America will be restored to its former glory. And that's a tragedy, because it's just not true. We can never go back to the way that things were when we all lived in a blissful ignorance of how bad things really are. The modern form of American patriotism is all about recapturing the high watermark feelings of the 20th century and before. Feelings that surfaced in retrospect around events that would ultimately destroy this country, like winning World War II. Just take a look at your average History Channel TV programming. It's like a eulogy for America. Hollywoodized versions of events like the Old West or on the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific, where young white Christian American men risked and gave their lives for a country that all the while was being stolen right out from underneath them. This country has always had a subversive fifth column lurking in the background. Our political system doesn't just allow for it, it actually encourages it. And that needs to be exposed and rooted out. And that's exactly what January 6 patriots thought that they were doing on January 6, 2021, as we battled against a rigged election. And it's exactly what millions of people across this country are going to have to do each and every day in each and every way possible. We have to fight for our national survival and for an American future even more glorious than our past. It's time for reclamation. There's a lot of work to be done, though. And a big part of that is exposing the pedophiles that are running this government.